When the cameras kept rolling, performers who died in front of a live audience. Cold open. There's a strange contract between a performer and a crowd. The audience shows up expecting a show, and the performer promises to give everything they have. Most nights, everything is a metaphor. On the nights in this list, it wasn't. These are the stories of entertainers, athletes, and broadcasters whose final act happened in real time, in front of people who had no idea they were witnessing the end. Some of these moments were broadcast to millions. Some played out in front of a few hundred people, in a small room. All of them changed the way we think about the risks performers quietly accept every time they step into the light. 1. Steve Irwin, The Cost of Getting Close. Few entertainers build a career as physically intimate with danger as Steve Irwin. The Australian wildlife expert known worldwide as the crocodile hunter turned close encounters with venomous snakes, saltwater crocodiles, and other predators into a signature style of television that made natural history feel like an adrenaline sport. In September 2006, Irwin was filming footage for a documentary project near the Great Barrier Reef. While snorkeling above a large stingray, the animal's barbed tail struck him in the chest. Crew members on site attempted to help him immediately, but the injury proved fatal before he could reach further medical care. He was 44. Irwin's death became one of the most discussed animal-related fatalities in modern television history, not because his work was reckless, but because it wasn't. He was, by every account, one of the most experienced wildlife handlers alive. His family continued his conservation work through Australia Zoo, and his children have carried the same message he built his career on: respect for wild animals over fear of them. 2. Tommy Cooper, the joke the audience didn't know was real. British comedian and magician Tommy Cooper spent decades perfecting an act built on charming incompetence, tricks that failed on purpose, time collapses, and a persona so reliably chaotic that audiences trusted his instability completely. That trust became tragic irony on April 15, 1984, during a live broadcast of the television variety show Live from Her Majesty's. Mid-routine, Cooper staggered and fell backward against the stage curtain. The studio audience laughed. It looked exactly like one of his bits. Even the show's other performers weren't immediately alarmed. But as the seconds stretched on and Cooper didn't move, the crew realized something had gone genuinely wrong. He suffered a heart attack backstage and died shortly after at age 63. Because the broadcast was live, part of the moment aired before producers could cut away. It remains one of the most unsettling examples of how a performer's own craft, built on making an audience laugh at the wrong moment, can obscure a real emergency until it's too late. 3. Owen Hart, When a Stunt Becomes a Tragedy. Professional wrestling runs on choreographed danger, but on May 23, 1999, that danger stopped being choreographed. Owen Hart, one of the most technically skilled and well-liked performers in the industry, was set to descend into the ring at Kansas City's Kemper Arena via a harness rig, part of an entrance for his comedic Blue Blazer character during a live pay-per-view event. The rigging failed. Hart fell nearly 80 feet into the ring in front of the live crowd. Broadcasters quickly cut away from the scene, but those inside the arena saw it happen. Emergency crews worked to resuscitate him, and he was rushed to a hospital, where he was pronounced dead. He was 34. His death led to sweeping changes in how wrestling promotions handle aerial stunts and rigging safety, and his family has spent the decades since advocating for performer safety across the industry. 4. Dimebag Darrell, Violence on Stage. Not every death on this list came from an accident or a medical event. On December 8, 2004, guitarist Dimebag Darrell Abbott, a founding member of Pantera and at the time Damage Plan, was performing at the Alrosa Villa Club in Columbus, Ohio, when a man climbed onto the stage and shot him during the performance. Security and bystanders intervened, but Abbott was pronounced dead at the scene. He was 38. The attack shocked the metal community worldwide. Abbott's guitar work had defined an entire era of heavy music, and tributes from musicians across genres poured in for years afterward. His death remains one of the rare instances on this list where the danger came not from a human body's limits, but from another person entirely, a reminder that live performance also means a loss of the physical barrier between artist and crowd. 5. Mitsuharu Misawa, A Routine Move, A Fatal Outcome. Japanese wrestling legend Mitsuharu Misawa was renowned for a physical style built on stiff, realistic strikes and holds, a style that made his matches legendary and ultimately dangerous. On June 13, 2009, during a tag team match in Hiroshima, Misawa was put down by a back suplex, a move he had taken safely thousands of times before. This time, he didn't get up. Medical staff rushed into the ring, and he was transported to a hospital, but the injury, later identified as a spinal cord injury leading to cardiac arrest, proved fatal. He was 46. Because the match was broadcast live, fans watched the moment unfold in real time, uncertain at first whether it was part of the performance. Misawa's death prompted renewed scrutiny across Japanese wrestling promotions about cumulative injury risk in wrestlers performing high-impact styles well into their 40s. 6. Karl Wallenda, no net, no second chances. Karl Wallenda didn't just perform danger, his entire career was built on refusing to hide from it. As the founder of the high-wire troupe the Flying Wallendas, he walked cables strung at extreme heights, often without a net, arguing that safety equipment undermined the purity of the discipline. On March 22, 1978, at 73 years old, Wallenda attempted a wire walk between two towers of a hotel in San Juan, Puerto Rico, in front of a live crowd and television cameras. Partway across, a gust of wind threw off his balance. He struggled to recover for several agonizing seconds before falling to his death. The footage of his fall became one of the most widely referenced examples of a career built on calculated risk finally catching up with the performer. His family has continued high-wire performances for generations since, always walking a line between honoring his legacy and confronting the danger that ended it. 7. Sib Hashian, a beat that never finished. Sib Hashian spent years as the drummer behind Boston's arena rock sound, contributing to some of classic rock's most enduring recordings. In March 2017, at 67, he was performing aboard the Legends of Rock Cruise, a themed event bringing veteran musicians together for an audience of longtime fans. Mid-performance, Hashian collapsed at his kit. As with several stories on this list, the crowd initially assumed it was part of the show, a dramatic flourish from an experienced performer. It wasn't. Ship medical staff worked to save him, but he died shortly afterward. His death underscored a pattern that runs through much of this list. Touring musicians, many performing well into their 60s and 70s, often carry undiagnosed or unmanaged cardiac risk that surfaces without warning in front of the very audiences that came to celebrate their careers. 8. Barbara Weldons, a rising voice cut short. French singer Barbara Weldons was still early in a promising career when she took the stage at the Leo Ferré Festival in Gourdon, France, in July 2017. Known for performing barefoot and pouring raw emotion into her vocals, she had just released her debut album and was building momentum across the French music scene. During her set, she came into contact with faulty electrical equipment on stage and suffered a fatal shock. She was pronounced dead at the scene at just 35 years old. The tragedy renewed conversations in the live music industry about electrical safety standards on outdoor and festival stages, particularly ones assembled quickly for touring events. 9. Lillian Harden Armstrong, a final tribute. Jazz pianist and composer Lillian Harden Armstrong helped shape the sound of early jazz, both as a bandleader in her own right and alongside her former husband, Louis Armstrong. In August 1971, she performed at a televised concert honoring his memory, sitting at the piano to play the music that had defined both of their careers. Mid-performance, she collapsed at the keys. She was rushed to the hospital but died of a heart attack shortly after, at age 73. The moment carried an almost unbearable symmetry, a woman who had spent her life inside the music of a legendary partnership, giving her final performance in tribute to it. 10. Mark Sandman, the voice behind Morphine. Mark Sandman fronted the alternative rock band Morphine, known for a moody, bass-driven sound built around his distinctive baritone. On July 3, 1999, during a festival performance in Palestrina, Italy, Sandman collapsed on stage mid-set. The band stopped playing almost immediately and medical teams rushed to help, but he was pronounced dead shortly after, the result of a sudden cardiac event. He was 46. Sandman's death left an unusual gap in the alternative rock scene of the era, a songwriter whose sound was so specific that no other band ever quite replicated, ending his career in the middle of the exact kind of intimate, atmospheric performance that had built his following. 11. Dick Shawn, when the bit becomes real. Comedian Dick Shawn built a career on unpredictability, often incorporating theatrical collapses and over-the-top physical bits into his stand-up. On April 17, 1987, performing at the University of California, San Diego, Shawn fell to the stage floor mid-routine, something audiences had seen him do before as part of his act. This time, he didn't get up. For several minutes, the crowd laughed, assuming it was another piece of his signature chaos. When staff realized the collapse was real, they rushed to help, but Shawn had suffered a fatal heart attack. He was 63. His death is frequently cited as one of the starkest examples of how a performer's own reputation for theatrical unpredictability can delay the audience's, and even the crew's, recognition of a genuine crisis. 12. Juan Johnny Walker Jumalan, violence during a broadcast. Filipino radio broadcaster Juan Jumalan, known on air as Johnny Walker, was well-liked for his cheerful, easygoing broadcasts on a local station in Calamba. On November 5, 2023, while live streaming his show, two men entered the station under a pretense, and one attacked Jumalan on camera during the broadcast. Viewers watching the stream saw the attack unfold, uncertain at first whether what they were seeing was real. He was later pronounced dead. His death drew attention once again to the risks faced by broadcast journalists in parts of the world where press safety remains a serious and ongoing concern, and to how easily a live stream can transform an act of violence into something an unsuspecting audience witnesses directly. 13. Costa Titch, a final performance cut short. South African rapper Costa Titch was one of the fastest rising stars in the Amapiano scene when he took the stage at the Ultra South Africa Festival in March 2023. Mid-performance, he stumbled, recovered, and briefly continued, only to collapse again moments later, this time not getting back up. Emergency responders rushed to the stage, but he was pronounced dead shortly afterward at age 28. Reports later pointed to a possible underlying medical condition. His death was mourned across the South African music industry as the loss of an artist whose career had only just begun to reach an international audience. Why these moments stay with us? What connects nearly every story on this list isn't just tragedy, it's the audience's confusion in the moment it happened. Performers spend their careers training crowds to expect the unexpected, falls that are really stunts, collapses that are really bits, chaos that's really choreography. That trust is what makes live performance so powerful. It's also what makes it so dangerous when something goes catastrophically, irreversibly wrong, because the very skill that made these people great performers is often the thing that delays anyone realizing they need help. None of these individuals set out that night expecting it to be their last. And in nearly every case, the people watching didn't realize what they'd witnessed until it was far too late to change the outcome. That's the quiet, uncomfortable truth behind every story here. The line between a performance and a tragedy is sometimes thinner than an audience ever wants to believe. If this kind of history interests you, there's no shortage of it, and it's worth remembering that behind every one of these moments was a person whose family, friends, and fans were left to make sense of a loss that happened in front of the whole world, or sometimes just a small, unsuspecting room.